Welcome everyone to session 11A of our ICSA conference. I'm Dan Buchanan. I'm here at Harvard Divinity School, a member of the leadership team for ICSA, and happy to be chairing this session. I encourage everyone to introduce yourself via the chat by just typing in your name, where you are, and a little bit about your connection to the study of intentional communities. Then we'll have a better sense of who is in the room with us. To the extent that you're comfortable, we encourage you to keep your video camera on, because presenters often find it a little easier to present to friendly faces, but we understand that sometimes that's not possible. Our presenter today is Demian Zerstrassen. Demian has lived at many different intentional communities and has been coaching people on emotional integration skills since 1982. He has written several books dealing with both positive emotions and negative emotions. And his workshop today is entitled Emotions and the Heart of a Community. Demian.
All right. I just was checking the chat, but there's not much to see. Well, I close it. Well, I'm happy to present this topic, but I want to say something more about me, and that is that I'm a son of a German father and a Peruvian mother. So my English is my third language and a little bit poor in flexibility. And so please bear with me, be patient. And if you have question, if I didn't explain something well enough, understandably enough, please use the chat or raise your hand so I can explain myself better. All right. So to set the stage for what I want to present, I think we all agree that we live in a multi-level crisis. Where we look, numbers of mental health issues to the level of violence that is happening today around. And so actually many people have lost their trust in their governments or in governmental structures and looking for orientation. And some of them look into the topic of community. They say, I don't trust anymore that the food supply chain will work, that my workplace will be safe. They are very unsecure about their future. And they look also towards community. I think this is important to have in mind. Now, in this context, I want to say that some of the motives people have is to find a place where they feel safer, surrounded by a community, maybe in a place, in a village, in a rural area with self-sufficiency. So, and this is sometimes the main motive. But I want to expose that there can be a much deeper motive. And that is to ask the question, how did we get here? How is it that this experiment that we did in this kind of civilization, how came it about that this experiment has failed on every level? So when this question plays a role in this new orientation, then we have to ask much deeper, not just how can I be self-sufficient, how can I unplug from the big systems that are failing. Then the question becomes, how can we find a new way of civilization? What does it mean? Where do we have to look so we can bring something to the table that is really new, that would not fall in the same traps that humanity has fallen into the last centuries. So it's a very big question. And I want to give you maybe a bit of my background, because we can look at community from many different angles. And so I want to give you 3 points from my background. One thread, one context that every time led me to the question, okay, what is it with community and how can this function, is when I gave professional trainings for instructors of emotional skills, integration skills. We had a format where we were living together in like modules of professional education or training. And in these modules, we were living 10 days together, and mostly in the surrounding of a community. And what happened that after like 3 or 4 days, people started feeling close to each other, so close that they felt like family practically, or better than family, to say it more precise. They felt like even if they didn't know the person before, they connected with other persons, with other human beings there, because they felt close on an emotional level. Now, what then happened then after 10 days, every time, without fault, the big question, almost like moving these people strongly, was, okay, now I have tasted another way to relate, another way to live together, and now I have to go back to family, I have go back to work, and I have to close up again. So this was one thing where I connected to another experience of mine, and that is that in 1980, I was living in a community that had certain characteristics, because at that time I was very much infatuated or inspired by a spiritual master, spiritual guru named Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. And I later went other ways, but at that time I lived together with a close group, and the special thing about that everybody was having this same guru and practicing meditation and things like that. And it was a very happy time, because it was like, okay, I can let go of all responsibility and feel like a kid, really, because this was a bit the feeling, the ambience, because it was led, this community, by a couple. They were very warm, they were very helpful, and they became like father figures. Yeah. So this was comfortable for some time, but later is what it was the cause for the collapse of the community, because obviously this couple got into conflicts with the hierarchy and wanted to do something else, and the whole thing dissolved. Well, this was one of my experiences, but it was like a background for other experience I have had. So I've lived later in many different communities, and some of the experiences that I had there are like focal points for what I want to present. Well, so the other the other thread that leads me to the question about community is what I said in the beginning, the catastrophic situation in the world. And there the question, how can we create another way of living together? Because it's like a crisis of our form of civilization that starts with the question, how do we live together? How can we, and then create new ways to live together that avoid the same fallacies. So this is somehow my background. And I think that it is a background that is special because of my different experiences, but more so because of my special focus on emotional integration skills. And I say that because from my point of view, we have a lot of tools created for having wonderful communities, but just at that point about the emotional integration skills, there I see something lacking. I want to steer in this presentation towards this point. So obviously we can have different wishes and desires that connect us and lead us towards community. And I would like, just to get an idea, I would like to invite you in the chat to put some of these wishes you connect with living in a community. Like I would give us a framework that can be basic wishes, like without that, no way. And there can like essential wishes that are a bit more evolved, but not are like a minimum. And then there could be utopian wishes and something that we might dream about, but find it difficult to get there. But I would like to say that the utopian wishes are the most important if we want to create something new. Because in these utopian wishes might be the potential for the new that we need. And so I would like to invite you, if you want, that you put some basic wishes and some essential wishes you would have for a community. I think I can see that. To demand more of each other. Basic wish, we spend some time together and some time alone. Yes, important. All right. Somebody. Shared vision. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Good,
Do
good.
you also want utopian wishes, or is that coming later?
Now, I would like to have that first. And now, like, take some time, maybe you can close the eyes and like connect to something that really would feel like fulfilling, like a dream come true, like where your whole being would flourish and would say, I have come home. I'm ready to die for this. This is what I want to live. Something of that nature. When you maybe ask yourself, what could be my most deepest desire, my heart desire for community, what would it be? I want to be myself. Yeah, very important. All right. I guess. Say, sorry, I said see. All right. Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So I want to share what, for me, the most important utopian or forward thinking or deepest thinking wish is. And I want to explain it a little bit because it has some background too. I think we as human beings have a very strong drive to belong. And this drive to belong actually starts very early. So we do a lot of things in order to belong. And in one of the presentations from Carl about the psychology of community, he talked about that we are born for a village. And we are not only born for a village, but we are also equipped. We are, prepared to create long-lasting and deep relationships. And this has to do with the sense of belonging. And from there, everything else builds. So what everything else builds means, in the beginning, that this is the foundation where we start to adapt and to do things in order to belong, in order to be seen, in order to be accepted. We learn that as we are not worthy to belong. We have to do something for that. Yes. So we carry this in us. And this is one of the factors that causes problems in communities. Because sometimes people have learned, well, I belong if I'm the leader of the crowd. So if some topic arises, some issue arises, and somebody else converts or becomes the leader, the thought leader about the solution about that, this person that had learned, I only belong if I'm the leader, gets nervous and starts maybe to create conflict there. Yeah. So this little point creates a lot of issues in communities. Yeah. And the same point is also a point where we need to create something new. Because the natural order of things would be that I can belong as I am in my authentic being, that I don't have to do anything for that. This would be the real fulfillment. Yes. But this is seldom the case. And the question is why? So I want you to keep that in mind. So maybe one point more about that. Carl, in his psychology of community, spoke about them also that there is sometimes a conflict between individuality and being in the group. Even somebody of Windhorn shared that sometimes the being in the group takes so much energy. Why? They shared that the meetings are cumbersome, difficult, strenuous. And it should not be like that. Community should be a powerhouse of energy coming together because everybody contributes. And this sometimes is the case, but not often enough. If it would be always that way, that if you put yourself in the communal circle, that you feel energized, that you feel more of yourself instead of less, then there would be no conflict between individuation and communal togetherness. I would even go one step more. I have had experience in community where I was very touched by the fact that I felt it's the first time that I can get to know myself in my different possibilities, in my different facets, that I don't have to play a role, that don't have to be identified with this am I, and I cannot do other things. I was set free of that in this community. Yeah. So in this community, there were like almost 200 people. And my day would start in the early morning, tending to the garden, then later in the kitchen for the children, keeping an eye on the children, and then later maybe in a meeting, and then later leaving a course in emotional integration skills. So I was not the one that leads emotional integration skills. I was a whole human being. Yeah, and in this, if we have a group where there is authentic belonging, there don't need to be fixed roles, but there is a flowing togetherness, and suddenly somebody discovers itself that he's a problem solver, which he maybe didn't know before. The other one that he can see the humor in things. The other one that he can find the common ground between two people who are in conflict. So actually, authentic belonging is a fertile ground to evolve one's individualist. How you say that? Somebody have individualization, individuation, becoming oneself, not as a fixed role, but in all the facets that we are, if we are a living being. So that's why authentic belonging is so important. Sorry, I have a lot of thirst. One thing more about authentic belonging. It is very difficult to get to that if we have a community that holds itself together by a charismatic leader, or like a group of people that are the thought leaders and keep an eye on the group think. So we are the ones that think this and this. And sometimes communities get to that point where they hold themselves together by ideology, by a system of ideas and visions, and they have like a group of thought leaders that watch this and protect it from deviation. Yeah. So then that is totally difficult to be to have that authentic belonging, because in order to belong, you will have to adhere to the groupthink. Otherwise, you are in danger to get put aside, that you're not in the center anymore, not near the thought leaders. So it is very important to ask the question, what keeps a community together apart of the common thinking patterns? We need something that keeps us together, that connects people so that the thinking can be free. I have experienced that firsthand in this community. I told you that like almost 200 people that I got into. This was not a group that kept an eye on the group thing. It was not a hierarchy of that type, but with one charismatic leader. And I had there was a point where I got in conflict with him. And for me, it was a very obvious issue. So one telling experience I had is when I asked a member of the community, a woman that was in the same subgroup with me, and I asked her opinion. And she said, I should ask this thought leader. And I said, no, but I want your opinion. And she said, no, I cannot say anything about that. He knows me better than myself. So this is an extreme example, but there are similar things in other communities. I was in another community that doesn't have a charismatic leader, but they have like a body of thoughts, a body of, they have a vision, they have certain ideology, I would say. And one of the points there is free love. So I was present at a forum, which is like a modality that helps resolve conflicts. And one of the women took the stage. They went to the middle and started to try to express her grievances and her problems. And there was a moment where I felt awkward because the one who was leading this forum was like steering her into the direction of that she should assert herself more as a free sexual being. And I felt awkward because when she started, it had nothing to do with that. It had more to do with putting limits. So I was concerned, and later I asked her, and she confirmed that it was strange, but that she went along with what the leader of the forum wanted her to go to. And I asked her, well, why didn't you say that you didn't feel comfortable or you didn't feel seen in what they were doing? And they said, no, I have this issue that I have difficulties with this free love thing. And I saw that it was important that I step into this so I can be part of the community. So these are examples that if we keep the community together just by ideology and one charismatic leader or a group of thought leaders, it is dangerous. It is dangerous because we lose the potential of an authentic community where people can contribute from their authentic self and enrich the community with their truth. Yeah. So we just get under the umbrella and feel cozy in the community, but this community loses value. It's nothing new. We had some things like that. Yeah. So this is like why I put emphasis in this in the issue of authentic belonging, not just belonging because I have my how you say that? I have my flat here, I have my room here, and I'm accepted and I fulfill my role. This if we want to create a new form of living together, a new civilization, is not enough. It might be better and comfortable than living in the world, in the wild world, but it's not enough for what we need. So I want to get a bit back to my starting point with the question, what keeps a community together? What makes us come together and feel so connected that we can actually sustain conflict, that we can sustain challenges, and that we grow with challenges and with conflict instead of fragment. Yeah, fragment. All right. So I said before that as human beings, we are social beings. Carl said we are born for a village. So we have all the drivers and the capabilities to do that from nature. The only thing is that our form of civilization has separated us from that. This is a fallacy, but it is also the challenge and the chance we have now. So if the experiment of humanity has failed until now, then we have to take a deep look and say, well, what has failed? And I want to expose what I think is the most important thing. There can be different factors, but this one I think is a very central one. And that is this. We have knowledge, we have tools about how to have a more sustainable agriculture. We have ecological agriculture, we have permaculture, we have bioconstruction. So we have a lot of knowledge and tools in that realm. And we also have some tools about the social element, social, how you say that? Sociocracy. Sorry, I think you know what I mean. Sociocracy. Well, we have different models, tools for that. We have also for conflict resolution, different tools, for example, nonviolent communication. We have the forum. But we are missing something. Before we relate to somebody else, we relate to ourselves. And there we have been subject to what this old civilization does to us. I want to talk about that later, just as a point. But the thing is that if we cannot relate in a loving way to our sadness, then it's difficult to be near somebody who is sad. It will be difficult. We will try to consolate him. We will try to maybe distract him. maybe we say it's not as bad or something. But as we relate to our emotions, so we relate to the emotions of others. And when I cannot be, how to say that? If I cannot stand by my anger, if I cannot connect with the strength in that, what do I do if somebody else gets angry? I get uncomfortable. I will try to avoid that person, or I will try to manipulate the person to not steer my anger in me. So the issue of emotions is crucial. When we start to live in community, there is something like a honeymoon phase. Yeah, we all are excited. We have great hopes. We find the people sympathetic, and we show our most sympathetic parts. We step forwards. We step up with a positive attitude. So in the beginning, everything looks fine. But if we really come closer, then we come closer to the fact that this other person has emotions, has patterns. So what happens is that if a community does not explore, does not evolve at this level, and does not develop emotional integration skills for everybody and for the group, then this becomes a problem. Because maybe one person hurts my feelings. Well, I try to not to be too much involved. And the way I do that is I start to avoid that person. And the more I avoid that person, the more strange this person becomes to me. And I start having prejudices and say, oh, this person is that way. And maybe there is a conflict, or I see somebody with an awkward behavior, and I step in and say what I mean, and there starts a conflict, and I cannot resolve it. And so there are many points at that level where like a subtle fragmentation starts to happen. And this is a major factor that communities fail. They fail in two ways. The first one is that people start feeling alienated. They don't feel home because this person is an asshole, and this other person is that way, and this person is not evolved enough, and so on. And then when we don't feel this belonging anymore, then people start to look in other ways, maybe to another community, or maybe say, oh, I don't have energy for so much trouble in the community, so much work to keep everything going. So the community starts fragmented. And what also happens is we can have the best structure and tools for good communication when there is a meeting and somebody that I have like difficulties to be close, this person starts to explain what she thinks. It often happens that I feel that I am not consciously, but unconsciously not be able to listen really what this person wants. And so I start discussing. I cannot see the common ground that is shared by myself and this person. I only see the differences. And so we have long hours of discussions where we discuss things like where to put the garbage, say like that, where the issue at hand would be easily resolved. But there are lengthy discussions, not because there is a lack of creativity, but because there is a lack of cohesion, there's too much fragmentation. So we need to be able to, that we need a situation where every member in the community is able to feel enough to be connected to it himself and to be able to process that, to integrate that. Then we can have a situation where the members all are able to feel and process their emotions and are able to connect on an emotional level. And when we have that, then any conflict and a disagreement is a stepping stone to grow even stronger, because stronger together. Because at every little challenge on that level that we overcome, we get to know each other at a deeper level. Oh, I understand that this made you feel angry. Now I understand. I can put myself in your shoe, in your shoes. So then we are exploring, we are developing what I think we could call authentic belonging. And this is such a treasure that nobody wants to leave a community like that. This you don't find anywhere. And it fulfills the most deeply felt desire, sometimes secret desire, that we have as human beings, to be able to be ourselves, to express ourselves, to explore ourselves, and belong with that, being seen, being part of something greater, being able to contribute, and not from a role, but from our potential that we start to explore and get to know much more in a community like that. I didn't know that I was a good carpenter before that. No. I didn't know that I had a good hand with children. So this is the most important treasure of the community. And in this lies also the chance to create something new, a new form of living together, a new civilization. So, but before I come to that point, I would like to open the space for questions. Do you have a question for that? No question?
So anyone with a question should feel free to either raise your physical hand like this or to raise your digital hand through Zoom. Cornelia.
Did Vincent raise a hand? No. Okay.
Thank you, Damien. Of course, you're completely right.
I don't see you.
Oh, I'm here. Hello? Hello?
Well, I see some.
Can you see me?
Ah, now
Hello?
I see you.
Oh my goodness. I'm in the middle of the street.
Of course. That's great.
Hello. So,
Hello.
of course, you're completely right. And having lived in community for over 35, in the same community for over 35 years, in the same house for over 30 years.
Wow.
I have slightly different coping mechanisms. And some of them are the rightful distance to a person that I am not, where I have a rub, a difficult relationship, a difficult history, having felt, badly treated by them or whatever. I live in Fintorn. We are, I don't know, a few hundred. We don't have a membership list, so I can't tell you exactly how many. But my sense of family is several hundred. And some of them are very, very close, and some of them are very, very far away. Some of them I'm glad to see the back of, and what you describe is a very idealistic way of authentic living, which is easily achieved in short term.
Yeah.
My son, who was born here and grew up here, he now lives, out in the world, and he loves to go to music festivals. And I always pull his leg because I say, oh, that's where you get your fix for community, and it's a cheap way. Because in a week, in 10 days, you can love everybody, and you can be on this high of community, be your authentic self. This is what we produce here in Findhorn for people when they come for a workshop.
Mm-hmm.
But to sustain and to hold on to my own integrity and authenticity within the messy soup of humanity around me, I personally don't have the resources to process every single emotion with every single one of all these community members. What I can do, and that's why I put in the chat when you asked earlier, it is an inside job. I need to feel belonging. I need to take care of my hurt. If I feel somebody treated me badly, I may have to go to them and confront them on it, but I also might just have to go, well, better stay away from them next time. Or, well, better take care of that trigger in me that goes screaming if somebody goes beep on that particular point.
Yeah.
So for me, what you describe, there is a risk, that people would walk away and go, oh, we just need to do more processing. That's not my personal experience. A lot of inner processing, absolutely, but a lot of rightful distance. And what you said about rigidity in the system, whether thought leaders or charismatic leaders or whatever. Yes, fluid systems are very, very important. And Eileen Caddy, one of our founders, she's sort of been heard many times. I mean, she's dead now, but she's been heard many times to say, this place will always change. I only get worried if it stops changing. And that's true. But of course, all that change causes a lot of uncertainty, which triggers a lot of buttons, requires a lot of processing. So there is sort of balance in all of those. And I would, knowing how many intentional communities find themselves in crisis, particularly at this time in the world, I would just love us to be very honest about, the idealistic solutions and then the realistic solutions that the world also needs. Does that resonate in any way with what you're saying?
It resonates in various ways. And I would like to keep a little bit the conversation with you. So maybe maybe we come to an understanding there. Healthy distance. I have nothing against that. It is important. But what I think is the issue, distance that we keep that would not be necessary. Yeah. So, and when you say you need then to do inner processing, what I mean if I say every member needs the capability, the knowledge also to process one's emotions, then I think this is in line what you are saying. Yeah. So the question here is only that most of the times we haven't learned how to do that. So we are stuck with an uncomfortable feeling for a whole day, which maybe could take 5 minutes to process if we had explored and developed this capacity, ability. Yes. So I think we are not in contradiction about that, but I think what I'm saying is like an expansion or something that leaves more profound. That at that point where you say, I need to withdraw so I can do my inner processing, that if you can imagine that you can do that to the whole human potential possible to process emotions, then you can, first of all, do that in a very effective way and very short way, short situation. So maybe you withdraw to go to the toilet, and 2 minutes later you come back and are integrated emotionally and can act from that. Yeah.
Right, that was
So-
a misunderstanding on my part and has a little bit to do with the languaging we use at Fintorn. Processing for me generally is group processing, and you also mentioned forum and the non-violent communication, which is all external. Whereas it in my experience it is often very time saving if I just take care of my own processing rather than having to contaminate a group space with it.
It's basic. If we don't know what we feel and in its amplitude and in its depth, then we relate from a superficial part of ourselves that is not in contact with our truth. So yes, in a processing, absolutely, keeping healthy distances where it is necessary, absolutely. And the third point you mentioned, that it is easy for 10 days, for example, to have that experience of authentic belonging. But what happens if it is longer? It depends what happens in that period of time. If the sense of belonging is a borrowed one, like the group leaders create some cozy, how you say that, envelope, and people, with the help of the group leader, let go and make the experience. I can be emotional and be part, but then the group finished and they don't know how they did that. Then this is reduced to these 10 days. But if you learn in these 10 days what your inner skill of processing is, I mean, you apply that. If you develop it to the full potential, then you go from that 10 days empowered to use this potential and these capabilities for the rest of your life in any situation. Yeah. So the 2 points more. So when we look at our emotional core or our soul, or how you would like to know it, to how to say that, to name it, we are, when we come to the world, we are we are feeling beings. And this is important because without the feelings, we would not have the capability of to make experiences. Yeah. Our nervous system would have impressions, but in order to have experiences, we need to feel. So we come equipped with the capability, with the power, how you say that? With don, you say in Spanish, with the potential to feel in very profound and complex ways. And it would be very strange if nature wouldn't have us equipped with the capability to process that. It would be a mistake. And nature doesn't make mistakes. So we come with the capability to feel our emotion, and we come with the capability to integrate that emotion almost instantly. It doesn't take days or weeks, yeah, but it takes the knowledge and to know how to activate this inner capability. And it's essential because our soul is like a system that regulates itself. Yeah. So our soul looks for a situation with the most inner space, so it can process every emotion and keep the balance. Our soul looks for the balance, to regulate itself. So our soul is like an emotional, energetic organism that is equipped with everything we need as how you say that, sentient beings, well, feeling beings, and we are fully equipped with that. The problem is only that we live in a civilization that has separated us from that. And this is a fallacy, and it's also the challenge and the task before us. If we want to have a new culture and a new civilization, we need to understand what it's about with these emotions. And unfortunately, even in the space, not only in space of communities, but even in the space of psychology and therapy, there's still there is still the paradigm that there is something like positive emotions and negative emotions. This is not true. This is not the nature of our emotions, that there is something that is by nature negative. It also would be very strange. But even in therapy spaces, if we don't, maybe some therapists or some methods don't say anymore negative emotions, but they say unwanted emotions, uncomfortable emotions, or low frequency emotions. The name changes, but the attitude is the same. It's like certain emotions that are naturally there, that have their place and their task to fulfill in the whole of our soul. Certain emotions are from a very early childhood being taught as unwanted, not welcome, this emotion, not wanted. Sometimes later in life, we learn methods to control the emotion, to make it go away, yeah. But all of that separates us from this very crucial part of ourselves. I need to drink something a bit more. So in a later part of my presentation, I want to expose what the real nature of the so-called negative emotions is. But I want to have want us to take a step back and look again at the whole picture. So we have said in the beginning that we have a multi-level crisis. Mental disorders, depression, suicide, wars, trauma, the whole picture. Mass extinction of species, falling birth rate. So if you look at the whole picture, it's like hopeless. Right? It's like a terminal sickness. So if we have a sickness at hand, we can look at the different symptoms and say, okay, we need agriculture. ecological sustainable agriculture. We need our energy supplies that they are sustainable. We look at all these different levels, but what we sometimes fail to do is to diagnose the sickness. And in order to diagnose the sickness, we can have different approaches. For example, there are people who say, no, this is not sickness. That is the inherent badness, the inherent evil of some people. But I want to challenge that because, first of all, we have seen that we are social beings that belong to connect. So this doesn't add up. And as therapist and coach for emotional integration skills, I can say whenever there has been some cruelty, it was done by some human being deeply traumatized and separated from his own feelings. Otherwise, he could not do such a thing. So what is it then? What is the sickness? If it's not an inherent evil of human beings, where there would be no hope, actually. I think when we need to look a little bit deeper, because there also are people who say, well, what we see, how the hellish scenario we are going to, the abyss we are going to, this is all because of capitalism, because there are power elites that exploit people and all for profit, and they don't care for other people, and we have to do social change. But I say this situation that there were people oppressing other people and exploiting them has started much earlier than capitalism. It actually started to a time where we had this. We had little communities, we had little villages, and we had sustainability. Yeah. So going back to that stage and add some wireless connection to internet or some solar panels doesn't change the core issue. Somehow in these early villages, or a bit earlier in these early tribes, something was there that along the timeline has created feudalism, capitalism, and where we are now.
Damien, are you seeing that Yuval has a question?
No. Who has a question?
Yuval.
Yes.
Chris has also got a question in the chat, and Yuval has got his hand raised.
Maybe let me.
Damien, we have a very, very different.
Different.
Can I talk? Or
yes.
No? We have a very, very different view of history and psychology.
Of course. Yeah.
So you are familiar with one critique, and I would like to talk to you about it. Maybe this isn't the best place, but there are other critiques of capitalism that are not about oppression or exploitation. And you may not be familiar with them, but I would say that yes, people can be at the same time incredibly connected and belonging in a tribe, and yet extremely cruel to another tribe who is very different than them. It is very common, and sociologists and anthropologists see this all the time. This is part of our nature, this in-group, out-group division. And of course, this existed way before capitalism, but capitalism does something else, which you may not be aware of, which is it actually dissolves all these intermediate levels that we have, such as villages, such as tribes, such as families, even our own integrated individuality.
Yeah, please, I'm very interested in what you're saying, but if I now take this in and talk about that, I'm not attending to my task here. So I would like to
Sure.
that we convene somehow and share our viewpoints, and maybe I can learn something.
Same
All right.
here.
All right. If I try to get back to the thread I was. Where was I?
Yeah, we're moving my hand.
Yeah, that we have to look deeper than just a social thing. We have to look at what are basic paradigms culturally, and most of all, culturally in our relationship to our emotions. Because from there, we act. From there, we relate to other beings and to nature. So this is crucial. How do I relate to my emotions? And I actually, if I try to diagnose the crisis or the sickness, I would say that we suffer from the triple separation, from the separation from ourselves, from other human beings or other living beings, and from nature, the triple separation. And the most crucial thing here is the separation from our emotions, from our natural self. Because if we are separated at that level, we also separate from other human beings that come near, and we also separate from nature. Yeah. Because in our soul, in our emotional core, if we are connected to it and feel everything, there we have a sense of belonging to nature, of being part of it. Only when we are separated, that gets lost. Also, we connect to other human beings normally. We don't do that anymore if we are separated from our emotions. So what I'm proposing is that we need the triple integration that starts with integrating our emotions. Now, well, here I can do a little pause because there was some other questions too that were not so far-fetched or so it's a different view. Was
There's a
there
question
another
from
question
Chris in the
more?
chat.
Chris, do you want to unmute yourself and then ask your question, or do you want me to read it out?
It's all right, I can do it. I'm sorry, I came on the call a bit late, so I may have missed some of what you've been talking about. I wrote, does the community need an ideal to organize around to make these virtuous things you're discussing happen? It sounds like you're suggesting that may be the case, and it sounds like your goal
I
is to be.
I didn't get the beginning authentically, acoustically.
Okay. My question was, does a community need an ideal to organize around to make the virtuous things you were discussing happen? And it sounded a little bit from what I heard like you were suggesting that the ideal is to be an authentic human would be the reason to be in community. I'm not sure if that's true. Is what I picked up.
Yeah, it's
and that
somehow
doesn't seem
related.
hard to achieve this sort of ideal or this thing that we agree on. And I suppose my second part of the question is, I live at Findhorn. I've not been here long, but it can at times feel like a complete emotional soup, where there's so much processing of emotions going on, but it feels like it lacks other things that I don't know in a town or a city. I don't know. Just get on with doing, really. Feels like I spend an awful lot of time dealing with emotions for not a lot of great gain.
Okay. Yeah. I want to start with the last part. Emotional soup. This, for me, I understand as a result of a situation where there is not enough inner processing. Because people come into the room, people meet each other with a lot of inner turmoil. So the soup that is created is not a soup that actually is nurturing, because there are many half-cooked things that don't belong there. So my answer would be, if the group setting is exhausting, if it doesn't lead anywhere, it's mostly because people are discussing issues or venting their emotions from a situation of lack of integration. If they come to the plate, if they come to the table with the soup, totally transparent and integrated, then they can relate from a place of connectedness and joy and gratitude of being able to eat together this soup. But if they are held grudges and criticism that are not resolved, then it gets difficult. The soup is almost not digestible instead of nurturing. So if there is a situation where the group is an undigestible soup, the question is not how to do more group stuff, but the question is how to introduce the level of emotional integration that is necessary so that people come like a clean slate, or how you say that. They come in a form of openness, in a sense of inner integration and openness to receive others. Then something else happens. Then the group meeting is enriching and nurturing and not disturbing. Was that a good answer?
I've heard your answer. Thank you. I will reflect.
Yeah, the first question, I'm not sure that I got it right, but I try to answer what I got. You mentioned having like having a common idea, like a common vision. I think this is important, but not as the basis, the foundation that keeps us together. Because if the idea is what keeps us together, it easily becomes an ideology, a fixed thing, a group think. In contrast, if we are connected on the level of sentient beings, of emotional connected beings, if that is what connects us, then we can look and be conscious about that we have a common idea, but we can also be flexible about it. Does it touch what you said?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about having fixed ideologies. I do get that. Yeah, I hear that. I'm asking because I don't know the answers.
Yeah, maybe I give an example that might be good or not so good. It came to my mind. So imagine for a moment that Findhorn would identify with the idea, we are here, this community that has Findhorn Foundation, and we make a lot of courses, and the prosperity comes through these courses, and the people who do these courses are like the central people in the community because they bring all the income. If we would have that as an ideology, that what keeps us together, then there could arise a problem. For example, if this income stream falls flat and the community has to invent itself anew, what keeps them together then? In the thought experiment, what kept them together was this construct with the foundation and the income and the people that come to courses. So the whole cohesion of the group could be in danger if this starts to change or collapse. But on the other hand, if the connectedness is not dependent on that circumstance or that idea or ideology, then they can be strongly together and face the challenges and be flexible about it. Yeah. So
Okay.
maybe this was an answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. So when I say we keep the old paradigm of there is such thing as negative emotions that we should try to avoid or get rid of or be ashamed of if we are not able to get rid of them or transcend them or transform them. If we have this paradigm, then we cannot be totally connected to our emotional core, to our soul, what I say sometimes. And I want to present another view of what negative emotions are, that is much closer to their true nature. And it is this would be a topic for another presentation, but I want to get into it a little bit. So I have said that we are feeling, how you say that, sentient beings, emotional beings, and that this makes it possible that we make experiences, that we gather experiences and grow with them and mature as emotional beings, as souls. So it is crucial. And it's no wonder that nature has equipped us not only with that, but with an organism or like a center that regulates our emotions. So forgive me, this should be a circle, all right? So this would be the entity, the emotional entity that lives in the surroundings. This is like a membrane. So we feel an inside and an outside. And there are three groups of emotions. One, I don't know, I didn't prepare that. Maybe I... So this entity, this emotional entity that lives in this surroundings and has this membrane, inside and outside, has three main groups of emotions. One is when we receive something from the outside that is nurturing. So the quality of that is that we need to make ourselves receptive so that the nurturing that comes from the outside can nurture us. So emotions that come with that are, for example, gratitude, fulfillment, joy of receiving something. So this is one group of emotions. The other group of emotions is quite different. It's not that we receive from the outside and make ourselves receptive and hollow for it so it can fill us, but at the contrary, we have impulses and potential inside of us that we want to bring outside. Oh, doesn't work like that. Wait. So, a bit improvised. So we have this kind of movement from the inside to the outside. impulses, wishes, desires, potential that wants to realize itself. So there we need to be connecting to our potential, to what we want, and give it inside enough space so that we can articulate and bring it to the outside. Okay, so if we had only these two kind of emotions, then it would be like we can have wishes and we can fulfill. But we all know that it's not so easy. There are challenging situations. So I make that this. So this would be a challenging situation. Yeah. An outside situation that challenges our inside being. So what do we do with that? We need to calibrate, we need to explore the challenge, we need to recognize the challenge and bring it to the inside so we can respond. I call that feelings of challenge. So every negative emotion belongs here. And it's maybe not enough time, but it is a totally different approach if we understand that our negative emotions are in fact feelings of challenge. Then we can give it the inner room so we can process it and respond. How to say that? What amputates, what takes away our possibility to process these emotions rapidly and effectively is the paradigm that these are negative emotions. Because then we don't give it the inside space that it needs to process, to recognize the challenge, to lead it to the inner sources from which we can respond to the challenge. So, for example, if somebody mistreats me, goes over my boundaries, treats me unrespectful, I feel that with my inner sense of dignity. My inner sense of dignity would be that takes in the challenge. What? He talks to me like that only because I have made a mistake? Is that the way it should be? And then I can take it inside to the inner resources of my sense of dignity, and I can step forward and say, yes, I have made a mistake, you are right, but that doesn't give you the right to shout at me. So in that movement, where my sense of dignity takes on the challenge in response to it, processes it in order to respond to it, there is not a one instance negative. Nothing negative about it. And that I can explain about every so-called negative emotion. So this is a big handicap. The paradigm of the negative emotion is a root cause, because that leads to us being disconnected from our true emotional nature. And it starts very, very, very early. When we as little infants and little child look into the world in order to learn about ourselves, about our emotions, about the world, there we already get to know, oh, I'm sad. Oh, my mommy starts to distract me. She doesn't feel comfortable with my sadness. So I try to do a happy face. I'm how to say that, exaggerating a little bit. But what I'm saying is here, at the very early age, where we start to develop our sense of self-awareness and self-regulation, there is a traumatic, how to say that, the culture in that we live is prepared to, from an early stage, to indoctrinate us with the paradigm of the negative emotions. In that way, separating us from our emotions. And that goes on. That creates trauma and trauma and trauma that separates us from other human beings, that separates us from Mother Earth. So it is essential, this part of the puzzle. And yes, we can have, I'm reminded of a course in community building that I gave in Peru. This was a group that was 7 years together and had tools for conflict resolution and had a spiritual guidance like close to Christianity, or maybe parts of Christianity and some spiritual practices. They were 7 years together. And after we started and everybody learned to process and to support the other members processing in a group sessions, the first time after 7 years, they discovered that they have a subtle, like underground fraction in the group. And that was that a part of them was from Lima, like the capital, and the other part was from a rural part in Cajamarca. This is a part that is a poor countryside. And they had a culture, they developed a culture where the Lima people, the people of the capital, actually did not understand in many instances the people of the rural surroundings. They said to me, it's like they are speaking another language. And the 7 years long, they were covering that up because it was uncomfortable. The Lima people didn't want to appear of being like, in Peru, there is a lot of how to say that? Racism. So they wanted to avoid to pinch that sore points. So they created a culture successfully pretending that they were understanding the other people of the rural part. So this was so absurd, but it's maybe telling to the fact that if we are not connected, if we don't develop, and oh no, I have to say that it's actually like a revolution, because we are ingrained in this. I said I named that anti-feelings culture. That is so deep ingrained in us. It's automatic. If I feel, maybe if I have not uprooted that, if I have not gone through this revolution, then the moment I feel anger and I don't want to feel it, I feel shame. And I try to rationalize, don't take it personally. Yeah. So there are automatic things that happen that if we don't reduce that, if we don't rewire that, it stays wired like that. Yeah. So
sorry to interrupt, Demian, but we have come to the end of time for this workshop.
okay. Yeah.
Sorry to be one of those external stressors, maybe provoking negative emotions. But please join me, everyone. Did you want to say one final word of conclusion? That would be fine.
what could be a final word of one thing, but maybe. It may sound difficult when I say process your emotions, but it is actually much easier than to repress them, because we are hardwired to do it. So if you feel a pressure in the chest, your attention will go there. And if you avoid what you feel in your chest, because if you avoid that, if you keep avoiding that by lowering down, by shallowing your breath and don't touch the chest with your breath, then your soul will sometimes try to reach that part and breathe to that. Yeah. So what I'm saying here, to round up, these are natural capabilities that we are equipped with, that are there for us as whole human beings, as fully equipped feeling souls. It's not that we have to learn some strange thing in order to be able to do that. It's more like activate that what is actually there and learn to develop it. That what should have happened in our childhood, that we can do now. So, and the very last thing, we also don't need a therapist in every community, because that would only give opportunities to create hierarchy. No, we just need this knowledge. We just need to activate and develop our innate capability to process our emotions, that all are like they should be. There is no negative emotion. That's my last word.
Thank you so much, Demir.
Thank you. Thank you too for
that
the opportunity.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And we have just one round of sessions remaining. If you stay in this room, at the beginning of the hour, Michael Gornick, Terry Curran, and Vina Ketty from Polestar Village will be presenting on divine friendship. In room B, Christopher Sims will be doing a poetry reading on culture, community, and creativity. And in room C, Olive Jones will be speaking on her book, Commune.